Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we're reading from the Krishna book. It's chapter 12, the killing of the Agashura demon. Once, the Lord decided to go to early morning with his cowboy boyfriends to the forest, where they were to assemble together and take lunch. As soon as he got up from his bed, he blew his buffalo horn, bugle, and called all of his friends together. Keeping the calves in front of them, they started for the forest in a great procession. In this way, Lord Krishna assembled thousands of his boyfriends. They were each equipped with a stick, a flute, a horn, as well as a lunch bag, and each of them was taking care of thousands of calves. All the boys appeared very jolly and happy on that excursion. Each and every one of them, including Krishna, was attentive to his personal calves as he attended them in the different places in the forest. The boys were fully decorated with various golden ornaments, and yet, out of sporting propensities, they began to pick up different flowers and leaves and twigs and peacock feathers and the red clay from the different places in the forest, and further decorate themselves in different ways. While passing through the forest, one boy stole another boy's lunch package and passed it to a third. When the boy whose lunch package was stolen came to know of it, he tried to take it back, but the boy who had it threw it to another boy. This sporting playing went on amongst the boys as childhood pastimes. When Lord Krishna went ahead to a different place in order to see some specific scenery, the boys behind him ran up to catch him up and to be the first to touch him. So there was a great competition. And one would say, "I will go there, I will touch Krishna." And another would say, "Oh, no, you cannot go, I'll touch Krishna first." Some of them playing on the bugles or vibrating bugles made of buffalo horn, and some of them were gladly following the peacocks and imitating their omnipoetic sounds of the cuckoo. While the birds were flying in the sky, the boys ran after the birds' shadows along the ground and tried to follow their exact course. Some of them went to the monkeys and silently sat beside them, and some of them imitated the dancing of the peacocks, and some of them caught the tails of the monkeys and played with them. And when the monkeys jumped into the tree, the boys followed. When a monkey showed his teeth and face, The boys imitated and showed their teeth to the monkey. Some of the boys played with the frogs on the bank of the Jamuna. And when, out of fear, the frogs jumped into the water, the boys immediately dove in after them, and they would come out of the water. When they saw their own shadows and standing imitating, making characteristics and laughing, they would also go to an empty well and would make loud sounds. And when the echo came back, they would all call it ill names and laugh. As Krishna personally, as stated personally by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the Bhagavad Gita, he is realized proportionately by transcendentalists as Brahman, Paramatma, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Here, in confirmation of the same statement, Lord Krishna, who awards the impersonalist the pleasure of Brahman conception by his bodily effulgence, he also gives pleasure to the devotees as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those who are under the spell of the external energy Maya take him only as a beautiful child, yet he gave full transcendental pleasure to the cowherd boys who played with him. Only after accumulating heaps of pious activities were those boys promoted to personally associate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Who can estimate the transcendental fortune of the residents of Vrindavan? They were personally seeing Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, face to face. He whom many yogis cannot find even after undergoing severe austerities, although he is sitting within their hearts. This is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita. One may search for Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, through the pages of the Vedas and Upanishads, but it is difficult to find him. Difficult to find him there. However, one who is fortunate enough to associate with the devotees can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. After accumulating pious activities in many, many previous lives, these cowherd boys were seeing Krishna face to face and playing with him as friends. Punja Punja Kriti. After accumulating thousands of pious activities, they were allowed to play with Krishna as a friend. They could not understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but they were playing with an intimate friend with intense love for him. When Lord Krishna was enjoying his childhood pastimes with the boyfriends, one Agashara demon became very impatient. He was unable to tolerate seeing Krishna playing happily, and therefore he appeared before the boys, intending to kill them all. This Aghasura was so dangerous that even the denizens in the heavens were afraid of him. Although the denizens of heaven drank nectar daily to prolong their lives, they were afraid of this Aghasura and were wondering, when will the demon be killed? The denizens used to drink nectar to become immortal, but actually they were not confident of the immortality. On the other hand, the boys who were just playing with Krishna had no fear of the demon. They were free from fear. Any material arrangement for protecting oneself from death is always unsure. But if one is in Krishna consciousness, then immortality is confidentially assured. The demon Agashura appeared there before Krishna and his friends. Agashura happened to be the younger brother of Putana and Bakashura. He thought, Krishna has killed my brother and sister. and now I shall kill him along with his friends and calves. Agashura was instigated by Kamsa, so he had come with determination. Agashura also thought that when he would offer grains and water in memory of his brother and sister and kill Krishna and all the cowboys, then automatically the inhabitants of Vrindavan would die. Generally, for the householders, the children are the life and breath force, and when the children die, the parents also die on account of strong affection for them. Aghasura, thus deciding to kill the inhabitants of Vrindavan, expanded himself by the yogic city called Mahima. The demons are generally expert in achieving almost all kinds of mystic powers by the yogic system. By the perfection called Mahima Siddhi, one can expand himself as he desires. The demon Agashura expanded himself up to 8 miles and assumed the shape of a very fat serpent. Having attained this wonderful body, he stretched his mouth open, just like a mountain cave, desiring to swallow all the boys at once, including Krishna and Balaram. He sat on the path. The demon, in the shape of a big fat serpent, expanded his lips from the sky to the land. His lower lip was touching the ground, and his upper lip was touching the clouds. His jaws appeared just like mountain caves, and without limitation. And his teeth appeared just like mountain summits. His tongue appeared to be a broad traffic way, and he was breathing just like a hurricane. His eyes were blazing like fire. At first the boys thought the demon was a statue, but after examining it, they saw it was a big serpent lying down on the road and widening its mouth. The boys began to talk among themselves. "Dear friend, this figure appears as a great animal, and he is sitting in such a posture just to swallow all of us. Just see, is it not a big snake who has widened his mouth to eat all of us?" One of them said, "Yes, what you say is true. The animal's upper lip appears just like the sunshine, and the lower lip is just like the reflection of red sunshine on the ground. Dear friends, just look at the right and left sides of the mouth of the animal. It appears like a big mountain cave, and its height cannot be estimated. The chin is also raised like a mountain summit. The long highway appears to be its tongue, and inside the mouth it is very dark, as like a mountain cave. The hot wind that is blowing like a hurricane is his breathing, and the fishy bad smell coming from his mouth is the smell of his intestines." Then they further consulted among themselves. "If we all at one time enter the mouth of this great serpent, how it would be possible to swallow all of us? And even if he were to swallow all of us at once, he could not swallow Krishna. Krishna would immediately kill him, as he did Bakashura." Talking in this way, the boys looked at the beautiful lotus-like face of Krishna, and they began to clap and smile. And so they marched forward and entered the mouth of the gigantic serpent. Meanwhile, Krishna, who is the super soul within everyone's heart, could understand that the big statuesque figure was a demon. The boys did not know, however, that while Krishna was planning how to stop the destruction of his intimate friends, all the boys, along with their calves, entered the mountain and entered the mouth of that serpent. But Krishna did not enter. The demon was awaiting Krishna's entrance, and he was thinking, "Everyone has entered except Krishna. who has killed my brother and sister. Krishna is the assurance and safety to everyone. And when he saw his friends already out of his hands and were lying within the belly of the great serpent, he became momentarily aggrieved. And he was struck with wonder at how the external energy worked so wonderfully. And he began to consider how he could kill the demon and at the same time save the boys and calves. Although there was no factual concern on Krishna's part, he was thinking like that. Finally, after some deliberation, he also entered the mouth of the demon. When Krishna entered, all the demigods who were gathered to see the fun and who were hiding in the clouds expressed their feelings with words, "Alas, alas." At the same time, all the friends of Aghasura, especially Kamsa, who were all accustomed to eating flesh and blood, expressed their jubilation, understanding that Krishna had also entered the mouth of the demon. While the demon was trying to smash Krishna and his companions, Krishna heard the demigods crying, "Alas, alas!" And he immediately began to expand himself within the throat of the demon. Although he had a gigantic body, the demon choked by the expanding of Krishna. His big eyes moved violently, and he quickly suffocated. His life air could not come out from any other source, and ultimately it burst out of a hole in the upper part of his skull. Thus his life air passed off. After the demon was dead, Krishna and his transcendental glance alone brought all the boys and calves back to consciousness and came with them out of the mouth of the demon. While Krishna was within the mouth of Aghasura, the demon's spirit soul came out like a dazzling light, illuminating all directions, and waited in the sky. And as soon as Krishna came out of the mouth of the demon with his calves and friends, that glittering effulgence light immediately merged into the body of Krishna within the vision of all the demigods. The demigods became overwhelmed with joy and showered flowers on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and thus they worshipped him. The denizens of heaven danced in jubilation, and the denizens of the Gandharva Loka offered various kinds of prayers. Drummers beat in jubilation, and Brahmanas recited Vedic hymns, and all the devotees of the Lord chanted the words, Jai, Jaya, all glories to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When Lord Brahma heard these auspicious vibrations which sounded throughout the higher planetary system, he immediately came down to see what had happened. He saw that the demon was killed, and he was struck with wonder at the uncommon, glorious pastimes of the Personality of Godhead. The gigantic mouth of the demon remained in an open position for many days and gradually dried up. It remained a spot of pleasure pastimes for all the cowherd boys. The killing of Aghasura took place when Krishna and all of his boyfriends were under 5 years old. Children under 5 years old are called Kumaras. From 5 years up to the 10th year they are called Poganda, and from the 10th year to the 15th year they are called Kaishor. After the 15th year the boys are called youths. For 1 year there was no discussion of the incidents of Aghasura demon in the village of Braja. But when the boys attained their 6th year, they informed their parents of the incidents with great wonder. For Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is far greater than each demigod, than such demigods like Lord Brahma. It is not at all difficult to award one the opportunity of merging into his body. This he awarded Aghasura. Aghasura was certainly a most sinful living entity, and it's not possible for the living entity, sinful living entity, to merge into the existence of the Absolute Truth. But in this particular case, because Krishna entered into Aghasura's body, the demon became fully cleansed of all sinful reactions. Persons constantly thinking of Krishna, the eternal forms, persons constantly thinking of the eternal forms of the Lord in the shape of the deity or in the shape of a material form, are awarded the transcendental benediction of entering into the kingdom of God and associating with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, no one can just imagine the elevated position of someone like Aghasura, into whose body the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, personally entered. Great sages, meditators, and devotees constantly keep the form of the Lord within their hearts, or they see the deity form of the Lord in the temple. In this way they become liberated from all material contamination. And at the end of the body, they enter into the kingdom of God. This perfection is possible simply by keeping the form of Krishna within the mind. But in the case of Aghasura, the Supreme Personality of Godhead personally entered Aghasura's position. It personally entered the body of Aghasura. Aghasura's position was therefore greater than the ordinary devotees or the greatest yogis. Maharaj Parikshit, who was engaged in hearing the transcendental pastimes of Lord Krishna, who saved the life of Maharaj Parikshit while he was in the womb of his mother, became more and more interested to hear about him. And thus he questioned the sages, or the sage Shukadeva Goswami, who was reciting Srimad Bhagavatam before the king. King Parikshit was a little bit astonished. King Parikshit was a little bit astonished to understand the killing of the Aghasura demon. It was not discussed for 1 year until after the boys attained the Puganda age. Maharaj Parikshit was very inquisitive to learn about this, for he was sure that such an incident was due to the working of Krishna's different energies. Generally, the Kshatriyas or administrative class are always busy with their political affairs, and they have very little time to hear about the transcendental pastimes of Lord Krishna. But while Maharaj Parikshit was hearing these transcendental pastimes, he considered himself to be very fortunate because not only was he hearing Krishna's pastime, but he was doing so from Shukadeva Goswami, the greatest authority on the Srimad Bhagavatam, and thus being requested by Maharaj Parikshit, Shukadeva Goswami continued to speak about the transcendental pastimes of Lord Krishna in the matter of his form, quality, fame, and paraphernalia. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 12th chapter of Krishna, the killing of the Aghasura demon. This is chapter 413, stealing of the boys and calves by Brahma. Shukadeva Goswami was very much encouraged when Maharaj Parikshit asked him why the cowherd boys had not discussed the death of Aghasura until after 1 year had passed. He explained thus, "My dear king, you are making the subject matter of the transcendental pastimes of Krishna fresher by your inquisitiveness. It is said that the nature of a devotee is to constantly apply his mind, energy, words, ears, etc. in hearing and chanting about Krishna. This is called Krishna consciousness. And for one who is wrapped in hearing and chanting about Krishna, the subject matter never becomes hackneyed or old. That is the significance of transcendental subject matter, in contrast to material subject matter. Material subject matter becomes stale, and one cannot hear a certain subject for a long time. He wants change, but as far as transcendental subject matter is concerned, it is called Nityanava Navayamana. It means that one can go on chanting and hearing about the Lord and never feel tired, but remain fresh and eager to hear more and more. It is the duty of the spiritual master to disclose all confidential subject matters to the inquisitive and sincere disciple. Thus Shukadeva Goswami began to explain why the killing of Aghasura was not discussed until 1 year had passed. Shukadeva Goswami told the king, "Now hear of this secret with attention. After saving his friends from the mouth of Aghasura and killing the demon, Lord Krishna brought his friends to the bank of the Jamuna and addressed them as follows. My dear friends, just see how this spot is very nice for taking lunch and playing on the soft, sandy Jamuna bank. You can see how the lotus flowers in the water are beautifully blown and how they distribute their fragrance all around. The chirping of the birds along with the other cooing of the peacocks, surrounded by the whispering of the leaves in the trees, combine and present a sound vibration so that echo each other. The chirping of the birds, along with the cooing of the peacocks, surrounded by the whispering of the leaves in the trees, combined to present a sound vibration that echoed one another. And this just enriches the beautiful scenery created by the trees here. Let us have our lunch in this spot because it is already late and we are feeling hungry. Let the calves remain near and let them drink the water of the Jamuna. While we are engaged in our lunch taking, the calves may engage in eating the soft grasses that are on this spot. On hearing this proposal of Krishna, all the boys became very glad and said, certainly, let us all sit down here and take our lunch. They then let loose the calves to eat the soft grasses. Sitting down on the ground and keeping Krishna in the center, they began to open their lunch boxes brought from home. Lord Sri Krishna was seated in the center of the circle, and all the boys kept their faces towards him. They ate and constantly enjoyed seeing the Lord face to face. Krishna appeared to be the whirl of a lotus flower, and the boys surrounding him appeared to be different petals. The boys collected flowers, leaves, and leaves of flowers, and the bark of trees, and placed their lunch on them, as well as on their lunch boxes, and they began to eat their lunch, keeping company with Krishna. While taking lunch, each boy began to manifest different relationships with Krishna, and they enjoyed each other's company with joking words. While Krishna was thus enjoying lunch with his friends, his flute was pushed within his belt of his cloth on his right side, and his bugle and cane were pushed on the left side of Krishna's cloth. In his left palm he was holding a lump of food, prepared with yogurt, butter, rice, and pieces of fruit salad, which could be seen through his petal-like fingered joints. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who accepted the result of great sacrifices, was laughing and joking, enjoying lunch with his friends in Vrindavan. And thus the scene was being observed by the demigods from heaven. As for the boys, they were simply enjoying transcendental bliss in the company of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. At that time, the calves that were in the pasturing nearby entered into a deep forest, allured by new grasses, and gradually they went out of sight. And when the boys saw the calves were not nearby, they became very afraid for their safety. They immediately called out, "Krishna! Krishna!" Krishna is the killer of fear personified. Everyone is afraid of personified fear, but fear personified is afraid of Krishna. By crying out the word Krishna, the boys at once transcended the fearful situation. Out of his great affection, Krishna did not want his friends to give up their pleasure lunch engagement and go searching for the calves. He therefore said, "My dear friends, you need not interrupt your lunch. Go on enjoying. I am going personally to find the calves." Thus Lord Krishna, still carrying a lump of yogurt and rice preparation in his left hand, immediately started to search out the calves in the caves and bushes. He searched in the mountain holes and in the forest, but nowhere could he find them. At the time when Aghasura was killed and the demigods were looking on the incidents with great surprise, Brahma, who was born of the lotus flower growing out of the navel of Vishnu, also came to see. He was surprised how a little boy like Krishna could act so wonderfully, although he was informed that the little cowherd boy was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He wanted to see more of the Lord's glorious pastimes, and thus he stole all the calves and cowherd boys and took them to a different place. Lord Krishna therefore, in spite of searching for the calves, could not find them. And he even lost his boyfriends on the bank of the Jamuna, where they had been playing and taking their lunch. In the form of the cowherd boys, Lord Krishna was very little in comparison to Brahma, but because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he could immediately understand that all the calves and boys had been stolen by Brahma. Krishna thought, "Brahma has taken away all the boys and calves. How can I return alone to Vrindavan? The mothers will be aggrieved." Therefore, in order to satisfy the mothers of his friends, as well as to convince Brahma of his supremacy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he immediately expanded himself as the cowherd boys and calves. It is said in the Vedas that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has already expanded himself into so many living entities by his energy, and therefore it was not very difficult for him to expand himself again into so many boys and calves. He expanded himself to become exactly like one of the boys, who were all of all different features and facial and bodily constructions, and were all different in their clothing and ornamentations, and in their behavior and personal activities. In other words, each person, being an individual soul, has entirely different tastes, activities and behavior, yet Krishna expands himself into all these different forms, in all the different positions of the individual boys. He also became the calves, who were also of different sizes, colors, activities, etc. This was possible because everything is an expansion of Krishna's energy. In the Vishnu Purana it is said, Parasya Brahmana Shaktihi. Whatever we actually see is the cosmic manifestation, be it matter or the activities of the living entities. It's simply an expansion of the energies of the Lord. Just as heat and light are different expansions of fire. Thus expanding himself as the boys and calves and their individual capacities, and surrounding by such expansions of himself, Krishna entered the village of Vrindavan. The residents had no knowledge what had happened. After entering the village of Vrindavan, all the calves entered their respective cowsheds, and the boys went to their respective mothers and homes. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Bhagavan Shri Krishna ki jai. Hare Krishna. Okay. Okay.